Today I'm going to talk about Chevy Tahoes. It's a 2002, when they used to make them a lot better than they did today. Now to start out, the giant vehicles. So this one gets about 14 miles a gallon in the city. You're lucky if it gets 17 on the highway. They're gas hogs, there's no doubt in that. They're big giant vehicles. And under the hood, a big giant V8. This one puts out 275 horsepower, but it's easy to work on, as you can see. Lots of room, alternators on top, easy to get to. And this one puts out about 275 horsepower. It's not a drag racer, no, it's a big giant vehicle. But the engine is plenty big enough for the weight of the vehicle. And this one is 18 years old. You can see a little wear, but the leather seats are still comfy. And it's got some serious mileage on it, 149,601 miles. And you can hear the fan makes a little whirring noise. Turn it off, the noise goes away. No big deal on an old car. It's room and comfort that these things are made for. Really, sitting in this chair, as you can see by the passenger, it's kind of like sitting in one of those barca loungers. They really are comfortable. And size, of course. It's got a lot of room. This one's a baby carrier. And when you open up the back, you can see can carry a lot of junk too. There's a lot of space back here. This is one big vehicle. You can put in more seats. These pop up and you got another row of seats. There's a lot of room in one of these things. It's got plenty of power for towing. Now the mileage on this one, it still drives and rides like a dream. And you might say, Scotty, oh, you're a hypocrite. You always say don't buy GM vehicles. Well, yes, I'm talking about modern ones. This one is 18 years old. They built them a lot better back in the day. And this one spent its life where it was made, here in Texas. Just listen to the door when it closes. That is one solid door. Rear wheel drive. It's not all wheel drive, four wheel drive. You don't need that in a big people mover like this most of the time. Most people are driving them in the city on a highway. These aren't made to be off-road vehicles. The weight that they have with rear-wheel drive, they got no problem going through the snow. I've driven in the winter, no problems driving these things around. With the weight that they have snow tires on the back, most people, you don't need all-wheel drive. Makes it more complicated. Worse gas mileage makes it a ton more expensive to fix when a four-wheel drive system breaks down. Now the engine itself is a V8 pushrod engine. Yes, it's an old design, but it's a tried and true design. These engines can last a long, long time. But you want something that lasts a long time, you can't go wrong with one of these pushrod V8s in a large vehicle like this. Nowadays, these things are made seriously. Look, it's got big steel tow hooks in the front, not some flimsy plastic crap. Yet it's still modern with front disc brakes and rear disc brakes. And underneath, it's got a big beefy rear end. It has a big truck rear end. They made these things solid. They lasted. And heavy-duty shock absorbers. Sad but true, they don't make them like they used to. They're nowhere near as beefy as these old ones were. Me, I take the loss of a little bit of gas mileage against the modern stuff that isn't going to last as long. Breaks down, has rear end problems, have transmission problems, even have engine problems. And they ride smooth. This thing just toodles down the road, smooth as can be. And because of its weight, when you punch the gas, it gets up and goes somewhat. But it is a heavy vehicle, realize that. It's still got some snap to it though. And it may have 150,000 miles on it, but the gears still shift smooth as silk in this thing. Like I say, they don't make them like they used to. Now it's certainly dated with its dashboard, so you can add on whatever you want. I mean, you want to tear this crap out, you can always stick in an Android radio if you want, but the AC still blows cold. It's got killer heat. And I like the woman who owns this car. Her neighbors always say, oh, you need to get a new vehicle for that old thing. And she's like, hey, I love it. It runs great. It's paid for. And it still looks pretty good. It's got power windows, power door locks, power side view mirrors, power seats. It's not like this thing is a dinosaur. Check this out. They put these nice handholds. They were actually thinking about stuff back in the day. I mean, I like them when they still had chrome bumpers, front and back. A giant roof rack you can put a whole bunch of extra crap on if the inside isn't big enough. And this baby's 18 years old. Check out the paint. Still pretty shiny. Back in 2002, they still knew how to make them in Texas. No, they weren't giving away back in 2002. This particular one was about a $37,000 truck. But if you can find a good used one like this today, you're going to pay a fraction of that, and it can still be an excellent vehicle. And the 4L60 automatic transmission is a simple 4-speed transmission. Very dependable. Like I said, this thing still shifts really smooth. Back in the day, they weren't making these crazy 8-10 speeds that cost a fortune to fix and break down all the time. They were rugged and dependable back then. So you might say, what's Scotty telling people to go out and buy a Chevy? Yeah, if it's 18 years old like this, with a pushrod V8 and a simple 4-speed transmission, they were building them decent back then. Other than horrendous gas mileage, that's just the way that it goes with these giant vehicles, especially back in the day. Today I'm going to talk about Chevy Silverados. This particular one is a 2015 LTZ, pretty much top of the line for them. Yeah, it's a sharp looking pickup, as you can see. And it is kind of a show truck, because as you can see here, it's got the short bed on it. It's not a full-size bed. It's more of a show-off truck than anything else. Look at the rims. They're not made for going through mud. But as you're going to see here, you can already see the quality's kind of cheap. Okay, that's unlocked, that's locked, that's unlocked. But look, you pull on it, nothing happens. You gotta jerk around. It's just cheaply made tailgate. I can feel the plastic already coming apart. 5 years old and the latch is starting to go. I know it's gonna snap off. I've fixed a bunch of these. Come on now, Chevy. This was a $43,000 truck when it was new, and it's only 5 years old. Cheap plastic crap on the handles, it's a truck. Come on. Now when we check under the hood, got a nice V8 engine, which is out 355 horsepower, but of course all that power comes at a price on a big heavy truck. This particular one gets about 15 miles a gallon in town, 19, 20 on a highway. Now as we check the interior, comfy truck, lots of room. Turn the key, and yeah, it's still got a key, which I like. Starts right up, got all the electronic stuff, but it doesn't have that many miles on it. It's got 67,201 miles. And that's small mileage and barely 5 years old. It's got a big problem. Got the AC on low, but it's just got room temperature air coming out of it. It's losing refrigerant. The customer filled it up and it lasted a few weeks, and now it's blowing warm again. I made a whole video on this, you can watch it, but basically what I did was I emptied it all out with my recycling machine. I filled it back up again, put leak dye in it. Normally you'll see where the leak has come with a dye, but it didn't show anything till I got my sniffing machine out. It smells refrigerant leaks. That's a normal beep. When it beeps fast, it means there was a refrigerant leak. But as you can see there, it checks for other gases too. I just ate a couple of tacos, and I guess they're outgassing from my mouth because it's beeping from that. But in this case, when I stuck it inside the AC dash, it started beeping, meaning that the evaporator inside the dash is leaking. Now it's bad enough that it's leaking. Due to their horrendous modern designs, this is a 15-hour job tearing the whole dash apart to replace it. It's well over, with parts and labor and everything, a $2,000 job on a vehicle that's just barely 5 years old. It's got 60,000 miles on it. To me, that's uncalled for. That is just poor manufacturing by GM. Like I've been saying, they don't make the greatest stuff anymore. Now it's bad enough that it's leaking, but in the olden days, the GM trucks, they had the evaporator here under the hood. I could change an evaporator out in about an hour. Not 14, 15 hours, 1 hour. But they decided to move it all inside. So you got to take the whole dash apart. And like I say, it's a 14, 15 hour labor job. And the cost of labor, the cost of parts, it'll be around 2,000 bucks to fix this stupid leak on something that shouldn't have leaked that fast. Again, here's my 94 Celica, 240,000 miles, old as the hill, still got the original evaporator, and still blows freezing cold. GM quality, it's not there anymore. Now this baby's got all the creature comforts. It's got heated and cooled electric seats, and when you go in the back, you can see the back seat isn't a joke. It's got a lot of space to sit in, a nice little area to put stuff in, cheaper quality and design. They didn't even have air conditioning system blowing out here like the Toyota Sequoia I showed the other day. You're just getting the air from the front, They could have easily put vents in here, but I guess that would have cost them too much, or maybe they couldn't figure out how to do it. More interested in having an armrest that's got cup holders in it. Now you're not going to get stuck with this thing because you can see here's the front end and there's the drive shaft on the right side. It's all-wheel drive, so you're not going to get stuck. In the back, it's got a big, beefy rear end here. Got to put oversized shocks on it. Got a big old spare tire under here. You know, it's a solid built truck. No arguing that. And as I say, when you climb inside, plenty comfy. It's a nice, comfy big truck. Traction control on or off, and you can adjust the pedals and stuff. You know, it's got a lot of creature comforts. There's no arguing that. So let's start it up, take it for a spin. Got the obligatory backup camera. Now it's got decent cornering for a big old pickup truck. We're not gonna have to wait for this guy who rudely pulled out in front of us. Isn't that typical these days? It's got some pickup. Big old engine. Hey, it rides like a typical pickup truck, you know. You're gonna feel bumps. They're sloshed out by the weight and everything, but you see when we hit these bumps, it rumbles around. It's a pickup truck. It's not a Lexus or a Cadillac, you know. It's a pickup truck. But for a pickup truck, really, it's got a pretty smooth ride. Comfy enough when you're going straight, not hitting any big bumps. And if you're used to driving land yachts around like I did when I was a young kid, you kind of point and steer, you know. It's not the crispest of steering, but you know, it's a big old truck. That's what it's gonna act like. And like I said, it's got a pretty cavernous back seat, you know. Climb inside. It's not particularly cramped. This isn't a tiny little back seat. It's got plenty of room. But I do have to say, for almost $50,000 5 years ago, and this thing already needs $2,000 plus of air conditioning work on it, the quality just isn't there. As the old saying goes, chrome doesn't get you home. And really, chrome veneer is very thin. It's what lies under that veneer that's important. So when you consider what's under this veneer, I'm not very impressed with this. Hey, they could have done a heck of a better job for all that money. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.